Welcome to the Behind the Bits podcast. Your host, Scott Curtis, wants to learn everything he can about stand-up comedy and take you along for the ride. Scott and his guests talk serious about comedy in every episode. Behind the Bits will uncover knowledge from different perspectives on subjects such as writing and performing stand-up comedy, as well as booking shows and the comedy life. If you're thinking about becoming a stand-up comic, already in the comic game, or a comedy nerd, Behind the Bits is the show for you. Now, let's get Behind the Bits.
Hey, BTB buddies. A while back, I asked for nominations for the 4th annual Discover Pods Awards. Well, last week, I found out that Behind the Bits is one of the 12 finalists in the Best Interview Style podcast. Holy cow. I was excited beyond belief. I am in the running with such podcasts as Armchair Expert, WTF with Mark Maron, and Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. It's a real honor to have Behind the Bits be selected alongside some of these really popular podcasts. I mean, I listen to some of these myself. The winner of all the categories, including Best Interview Style Podcast, is decided by vote. So now I'm asking for your vote. If Behind the Bits has provided you with information or inspiration, please help me to win against these powerhouse shows. Winning this would help Behind the Bits reach a wider audience and open up possibilities for interviews with comedians who might not talk to me otherwise. Your vote means a lot to me, as Behind the Bits is a real passion project for me. Please check out the link in the show notes and give Behind the Bits a vote for Best Interview Style Podcast. I'm told that you can pick any or all categories. I haven't really tried that yet because I already voted. Thank you for listening, and thank you for voting. Please vote for Behind the Bits for Best Interview Style Podcast between now and November 6th. Hey, we're live. How are you, Jeff?
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me.
I am very pleased to have Jeff Shaw with me today. Jeff has been doing comedy you've been doing it for about 30 years, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Over 30 years.
And I had the pleasure of seeing you about a month ago in an outdoor live venue. And I got to tell you, I hadn't seen live comedy because I don't just do comedy. I'm a fan. And I hadn't seen live comedy since I think my last one was the beginning of March. And it was sure nice to get out and see you. And you did a fantastic job.
Oh, well, cool. Thank you very much. I wish you had introduced yourself afterwards.
Yeah, it was one of those nights. I didn't feel like it was a good idea because I knew you had like a 5-hour drive back to Cleveland.
Yeah. 5 hours.
and I hate
5 long hours back to Cleveland. Like, Cleveland's like the only place you don't want to go back to after leaving Leesburg, Indiana.
Yeah, I just didn't want to feel like one of those clingy fans, so I said, let the guys go home, and so now I got you here, and this is the way I like to talk anyway, so that's cool.
Great. I've listened to the podcast. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, I know you're in Cleveland now. Where are you originally from, Jeff?
From Cleveland.
Oh, really? Cool. So, okay. Yeah. Excellent. Cleveland rocks.
People always ask me when I go, where are you from? I go, Cleveland. They go, really? No, I'm just saying that to impress you.
Yeah. Well, it's still better than Mishawaka, Indiana. So you're definitely a step up from me. So when did you start doing stand-up, Jeff?
I started doing stand-up in 1986 at the old Cleveland Comedy Club.
All right. And
yeah, I started off with Drew Carey and Steve Harvey.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure what those two losers are doing now, but I'm on Behind the Bits.
Yeah. As Bob Zaney would say, you've arrived, baby.
Yeah. But there was a club in Cleveland called the Cleveland Comedy Club, and I did my first open mic on August 16th, 1986. I bombed so badly I never went back until February of 87.
Okay.
That's when Hilarities opened. I started doing open mics at Hilarities in Cleveland and Hilarities in Cuyahoga Falls, which is Akron, Ohio. And this was the old days. This is during the comedy boom. So in the fall of 87, after like less than a year of doing stand-up, I was on the road featuring as a professional.
Wow. That's fantastic. And thinking about that first time that you went up, what was the impetus? What was it that made you want to try the whole stand-up thing?
Well, the first thing was I was a huge fan. I was a huge fan of stand-up. I was one of those kids that was always in bed at night with the lights out with the comedy albums that I got from the library playing, George Carlin, and Bill Cosby. And I was a huge Jerry Lewis fan when I was a kid, the Bowery Boys, the Three Stooges, and Laugh-In, and all the variety shows, Bob Hope. And then in 1975, I discovered Saturday Night Live and became a big fan of Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
And I ripped off his act, and I did my own little version of his act in school talent shows and campground talent shows. And then we got cable TV when I was 13. I started watching all the comedy specials on Showtime and buying a lot of comedy albums. And then I took an acting theater class my last year of high school. And my teacher liked one of my skits and said, "You're so funny. You should try open mic night at the Cleveland Comedy Club." I filed that away. And then when I came home from active duty training for the Army Reserves, I was all finished up with all my training. I decided to give comedy a try. And I had been home on leave from the Army Reserves. I was going to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, city of Monterey, to be a Czech linguist for Army intelligence. And I discovered David Letterman when I was there because one of the guys down the hall was a big fan. And we were watching Stephen Wright, and I discovered Emo Phillips. And then I bought Emo Phillips's albums and Stephen Wright's album. And then I was hooked because I considered myself to be kind of a weird kid, and they made weird cool. So I thought, if I can't be cool, I'll make weird cool. And I'd already been a Rodney Dangerfield and Andy Kaufman fan. So the writing that these two guys displayed on their albums, that was enough to seal the deal for me. And so then I saw Eddie Murphy at a sold-out Blossom Music Center in 1986.
Oh, wow.
So like 18,000 people. And I said, okay, I got to give this a try. And I had been writing. I've been working at my dad's factory with the anticipation of going to college in the fall. And I was writing jokes down on my lunch break and stuff like that. And so I had, by the time August rolled around, I had like 3 little notebooks of jokes.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was delusional as a kid. Ego had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Because I liked those comics, but any comic outside of those guys, I didn't think was funny. So I watched The Tonight Show with my dad, and I would sit there like this guy ain't going to be funny. I remember yelling at the screen when Jerry Seinfeld was on. He was doing a bit about monkeys drinking banana daiquiris. I'm like, come on, this guy's on TV, and I'm looking at a bathroom. Give me a break, And so I would watch all these great comics, and I would think they would stink. So I decided to try my open mic night experience. Finally, I watched some comedian on The Tonight Show. I said, "This is it. I can't take it. These guys are awful." So I had all my jokes written, and I called the Cleveland Comedy Club, and they said, "We have open mic night on Sunday night. Come on down." So to give you an idea of how delusional some 19-year-olds can be when it comes to stand-up comedy, at least in the 80s, and I kid you not, this is a story I've told other people. I was so clueless that I showed up at my first open mic night, and that's that Sunday in August 1986, with a suitcase in the trunk of my car, a couple of changes of clothes. I forgot what the gift was, but I had a gift for Johnny Carson. I had enough cash to buy a plane ticket, and I had somebody that would pick up my car from downtown for me if a limo took me to the airport. I was convinced that when I did the open mic night on Sunday night, that the Cleveland Comedy Club would call the Tonight Show hotline and tell Johnny Carson to have me on the show the next day. Yeah. So I had clothes, I had money for a plane ticket. Someone was going to get my car for me. And I thought, and then, so I drove past the comedy club and I saw a long line of people under the awning, some of them sitting on the floor. And I said, wow, how do they know I'm here? I wonder, I don't remember telling the guy on the phone my name. I might have, but I don't know how, I don't know. How did he find out? Well, okay, well, good. I guess they know. So I really thought those people are here to see me. So I park my car, I leave everything in the trunk. I go and I see that everyone in line is talking to each other, and they're all scruffy looking. They're all kind of look like a bunch of ne'er-do-wells, not like a typical audience for a comedy club. Not that I would have known what that was. I had never been to a comedy club.
Right.
This is my first time even driving past a comedy club. Okay. So I show up and I see all these guys in line, most of them men. And I hear them talking about, Scott won the comedy contest last week. He'd been doing it 5 years. That's the first time he ever won. Now, he doesn't think he has enough material to do a new set when he comes back, so he's going to repeat the stuff. How's that one bit that you were doing there, Bob? I don't know. This is about the 100th time I've tried it. And I don't know if I can get it to work, but you can watch tonight. How long have you been doing open mics? Have you been doing an open mic down in Akron? Yeah, I've been doing that for about 2 years. They haven't passed me yet. I can't get it. MC week, but it's coming along, and I'm like, what are these guys talking about? I'm here to become a star to go on the Tonight Show tomorrow. And all of a sudden I start to get this sinking feeling. People talking about comedy like a long process, and they've been doing open mics and practicing, and it's taking hundreds of times to get their jokes work. And I get this like sickening feeling, and I'm like, and then these guys look at me and I go, is this the line for the comedy club? They go, yeah, we're the comics. Were you here for the open mic night? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, well, get in line. They'll pick numbers and stuff. We're all going on. And I'm like, I thought I'd be the only one.
Yeah.
And so I get picked to go onto the show. And I'm in the back of the room watching the other comedians. I've never been on stage before. And I'm getting angrier and angrier. I want to go up and knock the mic out of everybody's hand and tell them to go work at Denny's. You can never be a comedian. I'm like, why are these people wasting the audience's time? Get me up there so we can get me on a plane and get me to Burbank. And I was in the Army Reserves, as I told you. So I had the black military glasses. I had the high and tight, military haircut. And I had gotten an old suit from like the Salvation Army with a little white shirt and a tie, and I had it all in a bag. And I asked the MC to tell me, like, when there's a comic or two in front of me, and when it was getting ready to be my time, I went into the bathroom and changed, and I walked out wearing my military glasses, my buzz cut, my little gray suit with the white shirt and a black tie. And as soon as I walk out of the bathroom, I hear the MC say, ladies and gentlemen, your next comedian is a regular here at the Cleveland Comedy Club. He's one of the paid professional MCs, and he'll be MCing here for Bill Wall next week. Ladies and gentlemen, how about a big round of applause for Drew Carey?
Oh, wow.
And I see Drew Carey walk on with the military glasses, the buzz cut, and the same type of suit. And I go, and then he starts killing, And,
of course.
At the time, he had he had props and things like that too back in the day in '86. But he was still Drew Carey was so funny. So I run back in the bathroom. I change back into my jeans and turtleneck, whatever. And he's wearing the black glasses. So I had to take them off, and I didn't have contacts at the time, and I didn't want to wear my regular glasses. So I went on stage without any glasses, and I'm freaking out. And I've got my note cards. And also, everybody there had memorized their acts. I had brought all of my cards, and I asked the MC, where's the cue card guy? Who do I give my jokes to? Put him on the cue card. What are you talking about? You don't have a cue card. I go, well, how am I going to do my jokes? He was just take them on stage with you. I thought there'd be like the Tonight Show, that I would be reading the cue cards. So now I'm freaking out. and Drew Carey kills. And then I hear Mike Malik, the MC, say, "All right, we've got a treat for you. Not a regular part of our open mic game here. This is his first time on stage ever. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Jeff Shaw." So I can't see, and it's a really dark room. It was like black with like red tablecloths and candles. We called it Satan's motorhome.
Yeah.
It was shaped like a double wide, and it was all black inside. And then I went to get on stage, and I couldn't see, so I missed a step, and I fell on the table in front of the stage, knocking stuff everywhere. And then then I heard somebody say, "We normally say get off the stage, but get on the stage." And so I climb onto the stage, and I'm just like, and I think I got somebody's chicken wings on me, whatever. Now I'm sitting on the stage, and it's complete silence, and I don't have my glasses on, and nobody told me that there'd be white spotlights in my eyes. Nobody told me what my voice would sound like on a microphone. And all of a sudden, he introduced me as Jaded Jeff Shaw. So that was my stage name. I thought jaded meant wacky or weird. I didn't know what jaded meant even. So I know it was alliterative.
Yeah.
Jaded Jeff was alliterative. So for those of you watching the stream here and not listening to podcasts, this is how the faces I made. I had the microphone, and I was kind of like doing this weird type of character. And I said, "Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm in a bad mood. Found out my sister's been cheating on me. Wait till my uncle finds out. Boy, is grandpa going to be pissed." And then I did a whole bit about my girlfriend being a leper princess, and I went to the leper colony to meet her mom, her dad, Fester, her dog, Spots, her cat, Puss in Boots. And people started booing me. And all of a sudden, all my showbiz dreams, like I really thought that I'd be doing the Tonight Show, getting the couch with that material. So I bolted off the stage after like 2 or 3 minutes, and I heard the MC Mike Malik go back up and go, "Hey, let's hear it for that Jeff Shaw kid. Kind of a short set. I caught it between strokes in the men's room." And normally I don't like to relay anything that's kind of somewhat blue like that, but that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
And the audience died laughing.
Yeah.
And I repeat it only because I remember hearing that vividly and I heard that laughter, and that was the type of laughter that I was supposed to get. And he got a joke at my expense. Welcome to comedy. And then I ran out into the lobby, and I was hyperventilating, and I was bent over, freaking out. And then I hear a poke, poke. I feel a poke, 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 poke. Hey, kid, poke. Hey, kid, hey, kid. And I turn around, and it's Drew Carey.
Oh, wow.
He goes, hey, not bad for your first time. I like that one joke he did. And he repeated one of my jokes to me. I go, "Which joke is that?" He goes, "I like that one joke he did." I said, "Which joke is that?" He said, "My mom says I'm so slow I'd be late to my own funeral." I said, "No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't even go. I never liked the mom in the first place." That was actually my one good joke. I mean, a lot of the jokes I did back then were like Stephen Wright-ish and emo. Like I had one joke was my uncle got thrown out of a mime show for having a seizure. They thought he was heckling. And then I did a joke. I said I tried to have phone sex with a woman. She said, "Not tonight. I have an earache." And then
that's good stuff.
Right. But then like a month later, I saw Jay Leno do a similar joke on Letterman. And I was trying to get Jay Leno's address so I can accuse him of stealing my joke.
Yeah.
That's how clueless I was. So what I try to tell people, when you're a young comedian, you stink, but you think you're great.
Yeah.
And then 30 years later, you become a great comedian, but you think you stink.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
That's very true. the kids that are watching and the kids that are listening after this is put up, you have to understand Jeff is.
You mean young comedians? You don't mean like this is like,
well,
shown after like Romper Room or something,
right? Yeah, but I'm talking to the young ones right now because you're just a couple years younger than I am, and you have to know that being as naive as you were was a lot easier back then because there was no internet. You didn't know how Carson got his comics, and you had the TV and you had the TV guide. That's all you had, and you. When you saw those comics up there, you thought that they were discovered in Cleveland. And I can totally relate to that because I probably would have thought the same thing about South Bend. So it's a little bit delusional, but the funny thing is the internet has changed things so much that, and I like to compare that to like music. Being in the Midwest, I'm a big music guy. And, when we were young, East Coast and West Coast got all the good stuff, and we didn't get it until about 2 years after that. So, I didn't get Talking Heads or Blondie or any of that stuff until after that, and it was only because the Notre Dame radio did a thing at night for like 2 hours that some guy took over the DJ, and he was from the East Coast, so I got to hear those then. And as far as the media is concerned, we didn't know.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that the internet has demystified everything to an extent. And back in the old days, show business was more mysterious.
Yeah,
and it was also it was so much harder to get any information on stand-up comedy or how it's done. It was so esoteric back then. That's why you hear stories about a young Judd Apatow tracking down, big-time comics, or at the time weren't big-time, but like, Jay Leno and Jerry Seinfeld,
mm-hmm.
Those interviews that he did with them when he was a high school kid, for his high school newspaper. I mean, it was mostly because he wanted to learn about comedy, and there's like nowhere to do it. Drew Carey gave me one book. It was called Comedy Writing Secrets by Professor Melvin Helleter. Mm-hmm. And that's usually one that most people started off with back in the 80s. And that's still in print today. Yeah. But it wasn't like you can, and then there was Gene Peretz books, but you have to order them special, you know, or see if your library had them. Yeah. So it was easier to be delusional, but it was harder to get good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So then you had to like watch. You had to actually stay up, unless you like. I think I got my first VCR like in '86 or '87. But you stay up at night and watch Carson, watch Letterman. And also too, one of the things that did me in the beginning is I had a weird sense of humor, but I was very inventive, and I liked stuff that was weird and inventive. And most of the comics in the local scene would tell me, "Wow, you're such a good writer. You're a good writer." And I never say that to young comedians unless their jokes are good.
Right.
I never tell people they're a good writer because their concepts are good, or because they're trying hard, because they're trying to be original. You're a good writer if you write well.
Right.
And that's the hardest thing there is. So one of the things that did me in is because people didn't know how to give me advice, because most great comedians didn't even know how they learned what they learned. So it was hard for them to pass advice on the people. Right. So they'd see you go up there, and maybe you don't get big laughs, but you have some stuff that they're laughing at in the back of the room, and they go, "Wow, this kid's different. He's original. He's trying hard. Wow, man, you're a good writer." So what happens is, if people tell you that you're a good writer when you first started, you're not going to listen to the audience. When the audience isn't laughing at you, or a joke doesn't work, screw those people. It's funny. So I never really learned what I was doing wrong, because so many people were patting me on the back for being weird and different, and maybe having some good ideas or good premises. But with comedy, the best way to become a comedian is to learn how to write jokes.
Yeah.
What you need to do to become a comedian.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's one way you can do it. You can say, I can say to you, based on my hair and my voice, a lot of people aren't sure what my sexuality is. That's not a joke.
Right.
But if I say I have a girlfriend my apologies to everybody who just lost a bet. That is a joke.
That gets.
And the problem is, so many comedians will go up and say, "Hey, people can't tell them because of my voice," instead of doing the joke. So when you're a young comedian, like, the best thing you can do, the most important thing, is learn how to write material. Everything else is secondary.
Yeah.
And you have to, so nowadays. So the point I'm getting at, so many books. There's so many comedy classes. You get, like, almost every big city comedy club has a comic whose wife told him to get off the road, so he's teaching a comedy class on Saturdays.
Yeah.
There are classes on Udemy and the internet, and there's websites. There's so many books on Amazon that you can get, and so a lot of people are taking the stage for the first time after taking formal classes in stand-up. A lot of the courses, you'll go to classes on Saturday for 4 to 8 weeks, and the graduation will be a 5-minute set in an A room on an off night.
Yeah.
And then everybody's friends and relatives come to the show. So nowadays you have the benefit of the art of stand-up being shareable and teachable and learnable. But at the same time, it's brought so many people in who think it's going to be easy or doing it for the wrong reasons. Yeah. So there's just so many people trying it now that sometimes the feeling of being like in a band of brothers or like a secret society, all for one and one for all, that specialness of it is kind of lost to a degree.
Yeah.
So it's pros and cons, but I am a huge fan of stand-up comedy, and so I still buy and read comedy books. Yeah. I just reordered some of my favorite books to have new copies because they've been updated, and I'm constantly watching stand-up. I watch every special. I listen to every podcast. I'm doing a lot of podcasts with, like, the local comedians here in Cleveland. You never stop learning. Yeah. And the key is now, because so much comedy is available online, I have become a fan of modern comedy and embracing modern comedy and learning and seeing what all these young people have been doing over the past 10 years help me stay relative and be able to become a comedian again, because I'm not doing the same type of stuff that I did back in the 80s or even the 90s. And a lot of comics are intimidated by the modern style of comedy. By modern, I mean over the past 20 years, where it's confessional, where it's premise driven instead of like formula driven. Right. And
it's not all set up punch.
Right. Yeah. And even if it is set up punch, like a lot of the greatest set up punch comics in the 80s, and even in the 90s, they had great jokes, but there were no premises. So now, I mean, the best set up punch comedians that you see on television, I give you an example. Mitch Hedberg, in the early 2000s, he was totally set up punch, but he would say, like, I don't have a girlfriend, but I do know someone who'd be very, very angry to hear that. Yeah. Now, do you see, that's just a set of punch, but that's about something. It's about how, sometimes, women think, that they're in a relationship and the man doesn't, or one person relationship isn't committed. And there's so much going on there. So there's a reason behind the joke, and there's a dynamic there that people can relate to. So nowadays, if your comedy doesn't have that dynamic, like a premise, an underlying premise, or if it doesn't have a reason to exist. There are so many comics these days that nobody needs anymore. We don't need anybody's jokes. Yeah. But everybody's unique point of view on life is welcome. Yes. And so if you can inject your comedy with that, then that's why you can watch a Comedy Central mixtape on YouTube where 10 comics are talking about roommates, or 10 comics talking about college or marriage or breakups. And it doesn't matter that they're all talking about the same thing, because they're all bringing a different point of view to it. And so hack comedy isn't really about what the topics are. It's the word hack describes comedy that's lacking an underlying premise or insight into the human condition, which gives the joke a reason to exist. And once I figured all that out, I can basically keep my style, which is more on the shorter side. I do act outs and stuff, but I'm more like a set up punch type of guy. Mm-hmm. And then my hunks are a bunch of jokes strung together, all on with the same type of premise. But and a lot of comics trying to make the transition from the 80s and 90s to the new comedy age had a hard time figuring it out and realized that doing the act that they did years ago. And so this is why you see on the cruise ships like Carnival Cruise Lines, who we can talk about later, that's who I was involved with for a long time. Most of the comedians on cruise ships now are not the hacky, stereotypical cruise ship comics that you think of. Most of the comics working ships today, except for a few older guys have been grandfathered in, a lot of the comics are top comics who can work clubs and do television, but are maybe in their 40s or 50s, and so they're not getting that heat like they used to. So cruise ships have become a place for journeyman comics who have been able to grow with the times and to adapt to the new comedic sensibilities and to find out who they are and start expressing that on stage. So nowadays, when you go to comedy clubs on cruise ships, you see guys who are progressing now more than they ever did back on the road in the 80s. A lot of the comedians who work for Carnival Cruise Lines have like 3 to 5 different half-hour shows, no repeated jokes. And you have to learn how to hold an audience attention with no opening act and lots of distractions in a noisy little back lounge with a different demographic sitting in each seat right in front of you. So I am excited by stand-up comedy still to this day, but the big problem is now with comedy being so huge in our culture and so many ways to view great comics, so many great record labels, so many great internet companies are putting out internet specials and so many great comedy club chains, so many apps you can download, and there's so many podcasts on comedy that now there are so many opportunities for a comic like me to see people half my age who are 10 times more talented than me. And you have to be able to deal with that. If you can't, then don't even turn on your computer.
So as I told you at the beginning of this, I kind of did a deep dive into you. And the first thing I wanted to talk about, is Czech like your family language? So you were a bilingual from the start, or did you learn that on your own?
Well, we should probably explain to listeners that I was a Czech linguist in the Army, and I went to the Defense Language Institute. No, Czech was the language that my Army unit picked for me. I told the Army said, "Well, which language would you like to learn?" And I said German. So they gave me Czech.
Okay. Okay, I dig it.
I was a member of the 350th PSYOP company in Parma, Ohio. First of all, I like telling people I'm a veteran because I like the look on their faces. Their mouths say thank you for your service, but their eyes say don't ask, don't tell. But when I was 17, my dad gave me an ultimatum. He said, you can either get a summer job or go to basic training for the Army Reserves. And I thought, if I got a job, I'd have to wake up early and be on my feet all day. So let's try this Army thing. So back then, the Army had something called a split option program. And to join the Army Reserves, you don't just join the Army Reserves. You have to join a specific unit in a specific slot. So one of the places open that had an open slot was a PSYOPs company, Psychological Operations, which was there in Parma. And, in case the Russians came to steal our pierogies, we'd be prepared, And so I had to take a test, and it turns out I scored off the charts for an aptitude for foreign languages.
Okay. So
the Defense Language Institute of the Presidio Monterrey is the military's premier language institute. And so our unit was slated for a European theater in the case of a war. And so you had to learn the language of the enemies at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like German for East Germany, Russian, Polish, Serbo-Croatian.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, our unit was lacking a Czech linguist. So
Okay.
that's why. And I spent a year and a half of my life there, and I exceeded at such a high level that I was awarded an Army Commendation Medal.
Oh, cool.
And I was Soldier of the Year for Ohio for the reserve units based on my performance there. So Czech is a hobby of mine, and I keep it up to this day. I've been to the Czech Republic 3 times, and my girlfriend is Croatian. We've been together almost 10 years, so I taught myself Croatian as well.
Wow.
And I taught myself Spanish, and I can read French.
Wow. Très bien.
Oh, merci beaucoup.
I took 4 years of French. That's all I remember. Mon cahier et mon stylo. I don't know. The reason why I asked about the linguistic part, I'm going to give you a compliment that you may never have heard before. So when I don't have ear thingies in my ear, I have hearing aids, and I'm extremely hard of hearing. And the problem I have is even with the hearing aids, when I go to see most comics, I miss a lot of what they say unless I'm like in the front row or they've got a really good PA. And your voice pitch is actually one of the frequencies I don't hear very well. And so I go to see you live, and I'm not planning on hearing you very well. I understood every word that you said, and you've got like an enunciation that is just perfect, along with the almost poetic way that you talk. I mean, you've got a meter to your language when you're delivering, but I heard every word that you said, and that is like a first for me. So I don't know if you've ever heard that from an old guy, but the way you talk is just absolutely perfect. I don't have to turn my hearing aids up. I don't have to do anything. So has anybody ever told you that?
No, usually it's no, people haven't.
I know that's weird, but because
usually it's like, stop talking, my ears are bleeding.
Yeah.
or when guys find out that I'm a man, they want the charges reversed from their credit card from the 1-800 number. No, I haven't had anybody. I've had people tell me that I'm a good speaker. I've had people that I'm a good public speaker and I have good rhythm and a good joke writer, and they like listening to me. And I've been told that my voice fits my comedy well. Mm-hmm. But I've never been told that I have soothing, dulcet tones.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
but I guess what you're saying though is that my voice is preferable to tinnitus, and so I'll take that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just being able to hear everything is just a treat for me, because I'm always like leaning in, and I'm asking my wife, what did they say? Because I missed a third of the whole bit. And so it's really nice that, when I saw you, we were outside, I was sitting pretty far away, and I understood every single word you said. And that's a really big plus for me. So like I said, in this deep dive, one of the things is I watched your stuff pretty close several times. And so on the Dry Bar special for the beginning, the bit is called Manly Girly Man, and it's right under 5 minutes long. I think it's 4 minutes and 53 seconds or something like that. And there are, we talk about laughs per minute. There are so many laughs per minute in there that you just totally grab the audience, and the rest of the stuff just totally hit because of that. What I want to ask is, how long did it take you to get that 4 minute and 53 second opener that just totally blows everybody away?
About as long as it took you to memorize everything that you just said when I gave you the sheet of paper. Would it take you like an hour? I gave that to you about like an hour ago.
Yeah.
that was years.
Yeah.
It took years, and that's a bit that I'm constantly adding stuff to. That's the thing about stand-up comedy today is everyone is expected to have a new hour every year, especially if they have a special, whatever. That's okay if you're famous and you're playing venues where your people come and you have your audience there and people know who you are. Because you can try out your material in front of your audience and you can keep adding, and you've got, anywhere from 500 to 3,000 people in the audience. But when you are a comic who makes a living playing different audiences of every type of venue all over the country and nobody knows who you are, every show has to be dynamite.
Yeah.
And so the comics that you see that have reached the level of where they'll have Netflix specials or HBO specials and they can write a new hour every 2 years, they're at that level now. But they spent the first 10 years crafting and learning, getting to the point where they can turn over stuff quickly. So a lot of young comics now, they start turning over material before their previous material is done. So you have to remember that most audiences don't know who you are, and the show has to be good for every audience. Yeah. And you have to realize that sometimes there's going to be all these things that go wrong. There's going to be technical difficulties. There could be drunk people. You could be have an off night after traveling 14 hours on no sleep and no food. So you really have to know what you're doing. And the way that you do that is by practicing your material, getting it right, syllable by syllable, word per word. And that takes years, and so that bit right there probably started in like 2009 when I got to be the comedy club manager for Carnival Cruise Lines, and I was a house MC, and I was doing 20 shows a week, and I did 20 different shows a week, and I would have to start writing a lot of material. So that all it's taken years, and I'm still adding to it. I've added jokes and changed things around since that special.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point now where I don't even want to, where I'm like, I'm doing jokes where I don't even talk about how I look or sound anymore. And that's my next step. I want to just do shows without even mentioning that. Yeah. Or maybe having one or two jokes. Right. But the key is that the audiences needs to like you right away. And when there's something like about you that, people say that you shouldn't make fun of your voice, be self-deprecating, say you look like a woman. I mean, even like Conan O'Brien often says he looks like Tilda Swinton, and Pete Holmes often says he looks like a lesbian. So in and of itself, there's nothing original about it, except what do we all have in common, the three of us? Yeah. We look like lesbians with bad hair and weird teeth and high voices. You know what I mean? So the key is that, it's like saying you're not going to go out to dinner with a beautiful woman or a handsome man because everybody else goes to restaurants and it's so hack. Are you not going to go to Christmas dinner at your aunt's because everybody goes to Christmas dinner at their aunt's? Yeah. I mean, there's only so many things in life, so stand-up comedy, what happens is when things are labeled hack, or when you see somebody making fun of the way they look or the way they sound in the opening part of their act, the problem is that it's just like the rest of their act. It's not done well. They haven't found the right joke. They haven't found the right thing that they look. They haven't found the right approach. They haven't found the right way to show that they're empowered by the things that they used to be self-conscious about. So when you see a comic who nails it all, it's like if I want to go up and talk about cars or talk about puppies or whatever, if I nail the bit, you're going to be laughing. If I nail about what's unique or weird about me, you're going to laugh. And the thing is when you go on stage, if you're someone like me who's a middle-aged man with long hair and a high voice, this, that, whatever, you're thinking like, what's this guy's deal? So if you're thinking, what's this guy's deal, or like people in the back there, what's this chick's deal? it's because then they're not paying attention to you.
Yeah.
And what you're saying. So I tell them what the deal is.
Yeah.
So everything that people might be thinking about me, I channel that and I address it all right up front.
Right.
And then what I'm doing too is that I'm using my sense of humor. So they get to see how I arrive at my jokes, my style, my rhythm. So it's more than just making fun of my voice or making fun of me for an easy laugh. I apply, all the jokes have to be perfectly perfectly rhythmic. They have to be perfectly written. And then it's all about tone and style, like what things I decide to say and what it is I'm saying about myself, letting everybody know that, I know what I look like, but I'm very secure with myself. But, and most of the things I talk about being mistaken for a woman on the phone or in person, and all the things that I say people say to me in my bit, those people have always that's really happened.
Right.
So the key is if you make fun of yourself or do about how you look, it has to be really worked out. And right. So after doing all those shows on the ship, I, got that bit to where it's like a good 5 to sometimes like now the manly girly man thing I can do for like 10 minutes and I've got other things in it. But after a while, I used to feel self-conscious about it because, everybody who's got a weird voice talks about their voice. Everybody who looks effeminate talks about it, whatever. But then, like what I said earlier, that doesn't matter. What matters is that you believe in this stuff, and also there's a premise there, and that people can relate to it. So it is so hard to do comedy and so hard to get people to like you that if you can find a way to get people to like you for 5 to 10 minutes with your opening bit about talking about yourself, then that's great. But the thing is you have to have all your other bits, and have to be equally as strong. You have to go on, so what I try to do now is make sure that all my bits are as strong and have the same amount of laughs per minute. And you want to, the key about a good opener is you don't want the opener to fizzle out and be the best part of your show. Yeah. You want to be that which opens the floodgates and sets the rhythm and gets everybody ready for that other 50 to 55 minutes.
Yeah. And that's really what I thought was perfect about that particular opener. And you talked about having perfect writing. I can tell that you are super fastidious about your words and that everyone is carefully done. And the example I have is you talk a little bit later in the set about somebody saying, hey, you look kind of like the actress Jane Lynch. Has anybody ever told you look like the actress? And what I did is I took that back to how I would write it if I were you, and I would say, has anybody ever told you look like Jane Lynch? But when you put the actress in there, it makes it 3 times as funny. And
also, it explains not everybody knows who Jane Lynch is. So why is that funny? Why is he saying you look like a woman? So when you say you look like the actress Jane Lynch, even if you don't know who Jane Lynch is, she's an actress on TV, and there's people who think, oh yeah. So well, it does make it funnier, but also too, it also makes the joke more accessible for people who don't know who Jane Lynch is. Right. Which is, so I think the fact that it's funnier, that's like a thing that's just like that comes out when you're a style thing, that when you're doing this long enough, you find the music in every bit. If your comedy is musical, then you're going to have those nuances in every bit, and you want that flow. So that could be a point where it makes it funnier for you, and also actress, actress act has got the But the key is like the thing that does in most broken jokes, the reason why when a joke is broken or it doesn't get a laugh, usually the number one culprit is a lack of information. The audience doesn't understand because you have to surprise the audience. So the audience, you cannot trigger the laughter mechanism with anything but surprise. What makes comedy work is somebody's expecting you to say one thing and you say another thing. But if they are trying to figure out you just said and what it means, they miss the part of the joke, the punchline is supposed to surprise them. So if they're expecting me to say, has anybody ever said you look like Keith Urban or John Denver or Crispin Glover? And then the guy says Jane Lynch. If you know who Jane Lynch is, you die laughing.
Yeah.
But if you don't know who Jane Lynch is, then you're going, first of all, you go, who? And then now you're thinking the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So little details like that are so important because although there are other benefits, and you like that for a different reason. To me, it was putting in the actress Jane Lynch, and I know, like, talking about being fastidious. I mean, it's a joke about me looking like a woman. Yeah. But if you're going to do any joke, every joke you do has to work.
Right.
You know, and if you're going to say you look like an actress who's more successful than you and more beloved than you, you better get an applause break with it.
Yeah.
So, and you're not going to get an applause break with it if there's any comedy speed bumps, I call them.
Right.
And the biggest comedy speed bump is, why did he say, who is this? Huh? So if you say the actress Jane Lynch, it doesn't matter who Jane Lynch is. Somebody thought you were an actress on TV, and then they're with you.
Yeah.
So it's very important when you're a comic that you don't have any logic gaps in your material.
Right.
Anything that's the moment you stop, the audience stops to go, why did he say that? What does he mean by that? You've lost it.
Yeah. I had an older comic tell me, and you may have run into him, Lou Deck. So Lou's a buddy of mine, and one of the things we did a podcast, but I also talked to him on the phone, and one of the things he said, and he's kind of embraced modern times, he says you can't do a joke where somebody has to pull up the Google to find out what you're talking about. You have to be the Google. You gotta take them all the way there. So that's very similar to what Lou says. So
yeah, exactly.
Another one that just floored me because of the meter and the execution was having intelligent children and telling them they can't have ice cream because I said so. And I think that's actually a minute of you being the child talking about why it's so stupid for the parent to say, 'cause I said so. That's another one. I mean, how did you come up with that? Because it's so perfect, and it's one of those things. I don't know if I could memorize that whole thing. It's like a soliloquy.
Yeah. Well, first of all, too, that's another thing. Like, those type of jokes are a tool in the comedy toolkit. And those type of jokes have been done a lot and can be overdone. But also, too, most of the people that do those jokes don't make them perfect. So they become more of a cliche and an annoyance than a joke that so brings you into the comedian's character and makes you die laughing. At least I'm talking about as a comic. So the key to doing one of those jokes where you're doing like a rant is that you have to, first of all, have the emotion in it. And make it relatable. And then you have to nail the character and have it be everything, that like a smart aleck kid would say. And then a lot of times, like a lot of my material, that stuff was developed on the ships when I was doing 20 cents a week as the MC for 8 to 14 months at a time. Yeah. And for a while I had no other duties other than running a comedy club because I had a standalone job. Like the last year or two, they had budget cuts, so I had to do all the activities that all the other people did and everything. But I would but then the trade-off was I got to do my own headline shows at night. Yeah. And then I was also headlining. They were actually paying me to fill in for comics who missed the ship, so that was a trade-off. So I had all day to write material on the ship. I would go to the comedy club, sit at my desk at my computer, and I would write for 4 to 6 hours a day, and then maybe do like a little activity for the cruise director, and then get ready, go to the gym and get ready for my shows. And so a joke like that would be something that I might have. There's two ways. I can't remember. I would have either have written the whole thing out, or ad-libbed it, and then listened to the recording, and then wrote it out.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
with me, for the most part, everything that I do, maybe not necessarily the first time if I think of it on stage or whatever, or maybe I might think of it on the way to the stage and put it in a napkin and then try it. But at one point or another, nothing's in my act without being written out word for word, comma by comma, every single pronoun analyzed, every single syllable analyzed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very visual. So some comics, they have an emotion and it'll pop out. I'm seeing my jokes on a teleprompter and I have to visualize every single word.
Wow.
So, so I practice things like that over and over again. And also too, when you get a bit like that is a long kind of like a ranty type of thing like that, that's something that you can practice in the shower. Mm-hmm. Or when you're walking on the beach or whatever. And every once in a while, if you're too tired to write or you don't have any ideas, then you go over your bits and try to make them better. Mm-hmm. And so bits like that are kind of hard to remember. So I was always kind of practicing them.
Right.
And it became a huge favorite of like families and kids in the clean comedy shows.
Yeah.
So then when you get a joke that becomes somebody's favorite, or a group's favorite, then you want to make it better and better.
Yeah.
So after a while, when a bit's in your act, I have certain routine joke maintenance that I do. Uh-huh. So sometimes I want to listen to my whole act and throw it all out, or I'll add bits, or I'll just sit down and come up with all new premises, or sometimes I'll just get stuff on the paper, how I'm feeling about things that I've never done before, never talked about before. But other times, the well is dry and you're just not in the mood and you don't have the energy. So you want to at least work on your act for 20 minutes, half an hour. So what you do is you have these little maintenance things that you can do, like pick a certain bit and write it out and see, okay, what's clunky about it. What I usually do with jokes like that, how I perfected them, is that when you have a bit that's like long or kind of complicated, there's always a part that throws you. So the part that throws you with a hard time remembering, the part you stumble over when you have like verbal gymnastics, is usually the bit. It's usually the joke. There's something about that passage that isn't correctly written, and you're talking too long without a punchline.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would try to, when I'm doing something where I'm speaking for a long period of time, is to rewrite it so there are little jokes along the way. Mm-hmm. And so by making sure periodically that jokes where I'm talking a lot have a lot of little laughs all the way, and that any passages of those jokes that I tend to forget or get stuck on or blank on or stumble over, those need to be rewritten. And when I'm writing new material and I'm trying it out, one of the indicators that I'm out in the weeds with a bit is that I can't remember it without looking at the paper. That's how I know I've gotten too long and too complicated, and I need to have longer bits cut up into short jokes, that feed the premise,
right,
and help develop the premise as you go.
Yeah. And the really cool thing about that joke is there are, I didn't count how many tags there are in there, but there's probably, 15, 16 tags, and each one is funny in and of itself, but the way you present it is in a way that you're taking it all in, like the bartering part and stuff like that. So the audience member is taking that in and they are laughing internally, but still hearing the next tag. And then at the end of the joke, you get the big laugh. So you really take them on a little journey on that. And I just, I am a big fan of somebody that can do that, because I don't see very many people do that well. And you definitely kicked it out of the park on that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I admired that a lot.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. So, at what point did you decide you're going to be a clean comic?
When I, on the cruise ships. Well, actually, when I had to start working, land gigs, because on the cruise ship, working for Carnival I was a comedian from 1987 to 2004. In the 90s, I started learning how to write essays, comedic essays. I wanted to be the next Dave Barry. So I started writing from in 94. In 96, I got published in Cleveland Scene magazine. And they'd done a couple articles on me, and I became friends with one of the editors, and asked me if I wanted to start writing humor pieces when I told him I was a Dave Barry fan. And so I learned all about writing, and I was writing for various newspapers and stuff like that around the country. I self-syndicate myself, doing articles on comedy, but also my comedic essays. And then I wanted to parlay that into a writing career because comedy kept getting harder and harder and harder. And in 2004, the bottom fell out of the industry. My career imploded, and to the point where I was so down and out that my mom and dad said, well, why don't you just quit comedy for a while, regroup, and you can always go back to it. Don't quit forever. Just give yourself a break and find a job. I go, what am I going to do? My mom says, well, your cousins work at American Greetings. Maybe you like to drive. Maybe you can drive the van around delivering all the cars, and you can work on your material in the while you're driving and listen to your music and make phone calls and stuff and figure it out. Something like that would be great for you driving, and I go, all right, call. So they said, he wants to drive a van. Well, what does he normally do? He goes, he's a comedian. Well, why don't we just make him a writer? So by that summer, I was a full-time staff writer for American Greetings in 2004. And then after a couple of years, I got laid off. My high salary and lack of seniority and my inability to be political in a corporate environment, lack of any lack of real job experience. I found myself, my career over, both as a comedian and a writer. And I was working at a company that manned I was working in copy centers and mail rooms at like 40 years old. So I turned 40 and my career fell apart. And then after a year, I called Carnival Cruise Lines and asked them if I could be a cruise director, because I made a list of all the things that I liked and the things I could do. And I loved being a ship comedian. And I'd done that my last year of stand-up comedy. And so I put all my stuff in storage, quit my jobs. I was an usher at Hilarities Comedy Club, and I was working there at night after my shifts in the hospitals and factories and law firms, in the copy centers and mail rooms. And then I was wearing the monkey suit, with the tuxedo shirt and the black pants and the cummerbund and the bow tie and the earpiece, watching people that used to open for me headline. But I learned how to run a comedy club. And then I went to work for Carnival to become a cruise director. And my cruise director had me host all the midnight comedy shows in the back lounge. And I started, doing time. And then one night, 2 years into it, one of the comedians missed a ship, and he had me headline the Welcome Aboard show, do half an hour. I killed, was a big hit with the guests. He wrote a review on me as if I were a regular entertainer. The Office read it, and they were planning a brand new comedy club for their newest ship, Carnival Dream, which launched out of Rome in 2009. So I found myself leaving my ship and taking a short break, then reporting to the Carnival Dream in Rome to become the first ever Carnival Comedy Club manager.
Wow.
And we had the Carnival Comedy Club project, which I helped run from the very beginning. Everything from making tickets to promoting the show to setting up the times to dealing with the comics to seating the audience. So I was a one-man show. I seated the room, I ran the shows, I cleared the room, I took care of the comics. And as the host, MC, Carnival has the early shows, which are family friendly. All ages can go. So you have to be clean. But then you have the R-rated shows at night where they want you to be dirty, but you have to be able to do both equally strongly. So I was doing that for 8 years, and I had, by the end of the 8 years, I had 20 different 5 minutes, 10-minute sets, and I could do 3 to 4 different shows. And when my job was eliminated and I was passed over for the director's job in the Office twice, due to my lack of corporate experience or managerial experience, they asked me if I wanted to be a cruise director. I said no. They said, would you like to be a fly-on comedian? I said yes. So I did one last contract working for Carnival Cruise Lines on the Carnival Splendor. And the cruise director gave me my own shows on the off nights. And halfway through my 6-month contract, where I had to do all the duties that I never did, hosting bingo, all that kind of stuff that I hadn't done for years, when that happened, halfway through my contract, I was booked up to the end of the year as a fly-on, and I had my 3 shows down, my 1-hour PG show and my 2-hour shows. You do a total of 5, so you repeat your PG show, and then you do one of your R shows twice. And then I signed off the Carnival Splendor in August, I think, 13th or something like that in 2017. And then next thing you know, 3 days later, I'm getting on the ship as a stand-up comic. So what happened is by that time, they had brought so many comics into the program and so many great comics that there was less work to go around and more people taking a piece of the pie. So I wasn't able to go in and automatically make 6 figures working only for Carnival like a lot of these guys were. So I had to start getting work on land to supplement. And so when I started to work other clubs and try to get corporate gigs and all that stuff, I wanted to capitalize on my ability to do shows completely clean in front of all ages.
Right.
And so I decided that from now on, so that I'm just going to be clean, except when I do the R-rated shows on the ships. And now I try to, no matter what venue I play, I try to be completely clean.
Right. There's a big resurgence in clean comics. I think Gaffigan kind of brought that on. We got people like Nate Bargatze, who works completely clean. And the funny thing is, I went to 2 Bargatze shows last year, and you look at the audience makeup, and it's everybody from, a 14-year-old kid to a 49-year-old truck driver to somebody from the Hells Angels. The clean comedy still relates to everybody if you do it well. And you don't have to drop all the F-bombs or talk about your dick all the time in order to be funny. And I really enjoy that because I do clean comedy myself and have tried to do the R-rated stuff, and it just doesn't fit with either the way I look or the way I am. So it's really neat that that's making a resurgence.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, that's the deep dive I did into you. Big fan.
Cool.
There's
I'll be gonna hit your head.
Yeah. If I would have, it would have hurt because there's no hair up there anymore. I've got 2 questions to ask you before we end this. First off, you're the second person who's had Kiss memorabilia in the background. The last one was Mr. Showtime David Scott. Have you ever worked with him?
No, I haven't.
But he's a big Kiss fan, so I got to ask, what's your favorite Kiss song?
My favorite Kiss song is probably Detroit Rock City.
Okay. That's actually my number 2. Cold Gin is my favorite, but
yeah, I like Cold Gin, but I love Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World.
Oh yeah,
God of Thunder. Black Diamond.
Yeah.
Love Gun.
So King of the Nighttime World and God of Thunder were add-ons to Kiss Alive 2, and those were 2 of my favorite songs on that live album. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean add-ons?
Well, they weren't live.
No, they were live.
Oh, they were?
The songs on the back, the songs on the last side of the album, which were studio tracks, were American Man, Larger Than Life, Rocket Ride.
Okay.
And one more, I can't remember what it is.
Okay. Yeah, you're a bigger Kiss fan than I am, but
the joke I do in my act is I say my mom took me to my first Kiss concert, my dad took me to my second Kiss concert, and a drifter paid by my mom and dad took me to my third Kiss concert.
So they weren't fans.
Yeah, this Kiss lamp, it was a 53rd birthday party from a present from my parents. It's from the Bradford Exchange.
Oh, cool.
And this is a new joke in my act, or a recent joke in my act. And I said, Mom, do you think the fact that I love this Kiss lamp more than any of my other worldly possessions means I am emotionally stunted at 53, and she said, no, sweetheart, all it means is you have really good taste in music and you'll have a really nice piece of furniture should you ever move out and get a place of your own.
Oh, that's great. So the last question, and this is something I ask everybody, what 3 things do you know now about stand-up comedy that you wish you would have known when you started?
Okay, the first one is what a premise, an act out, and a mix are. Mm-hmm. How to have a point of view, what people meant by a point of view. I was driven crazy by every TV scout, every comedy festival scout that said you have to have a point of view. Mm-hmm. And the food sucks at Denny's. Uh-huh. That's my point of view. I think the food at Denny's sucks. What are you talking about? How is that not a point of view? Uh-huh. And nobody could tell you what a point of view was. Nobody. Like everybody who said, well, you're not right for our festival. You're not right for our show because you don't have a point of view. Uh-huh. You don't have a comedic voice. It took me almost 25 years to figure out what they meant. And what they mean is you're not supposed to do stand-up. You're not supposed to say things to get a laugh. You're supposed to get laughs so you can say things. That's the number one thing. It took me 30 years almost to figure that out. Uh-huh. So I didn't know how to write jokes about real life opinions, about real life things. Uh-huh. And how you do that is through a premise. A premise is an insight into the human condition, which you use to prove what is stupid, weird, hard, or scary about a certain aspect of life. Mm-hmm. And then you use the various comedic formulas or tools such as act outs and mixes. Like an act out is like when you go like, man, people are so rude when then you act like the person at the store, like da-da-da-da. Or a mix is like, you never see them do that there. Or wouldn't it be funny if we did the same thing? Or, wouldn't it be funny if that's how it was on airplanes? That's a mix. Yeah. And what you're doing is you're juxtapositioning the situation to shed more light on what it is you're trying to prove. Mm-hmm. So by taking a situation and trying to show how dumb that situation, how difficult that situation, by using a mix and putting it in a whole different scenario, it makes it easier to see. So to figure out what a premise is and how to develop your comedic voice is the most important thing that I've learned. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I wish I had known was that people have to how to be political, how you behave in a club, how fun you are to work with, and
basically just being nice.
No, not being nice because I was super nice. Okay, I've always been nice. Is not being annoying. And not being high maintenance, and not always letting everybody know everything that you're thinking. Yeah. Okay. That's where you're hard on your sleeve. Yeah. And be easy to work with. Okay. I mean, your grandmother's nice, but you want to kick her down a flight of stairs. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's not about being nice. Yeah. And then the other thing is, what else I'd known about stand-up comedy? How to I'm trying to think what would it be, how to really care about what people think about your act without really caring about what people think about your act. So going up on stage and making sure, like, the most important thing for me is that if I know if I know a joke is honest and I put my heart into it, then it doesn't matter what people think, or I will take their criticism and help make the joke better. But if you're not happy with a bit or you don't believe in it, no matter how many compliments you get, you're not going to be happy.
I understand that. I felt that. And actually taking stuff out of my set that people like because it didn't feel like it was part of me. So I dig that.
But also too, you have to learn how to make emails really short when dealing with bookers, and I have the hardest time with that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get like anytime a booker gets an email from me, it's like, oh, Stephen King's doing comedy now.
Hey, speaking of Stephen King, for my listeners, talk about the YouTube stuff you've got going on, because that's really cool stuff.
Okay, I'll do that real quick, but I have to be out of here in 4 minutes to go pick up my car for the body shop.
I got you.
I do a segment on YouTube called "You're Doing It Wrong," and I also post them on here. That's the third thing that I wish I'd known, but it's not. I wish I'd known 30 years ago. It's what I wish I would have known 5 years ago. How important social media is and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I've been taking courses, I've been learning, and it's so hard. It's like the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's so important.
Yeah.
But so my YouTube is Jeff Shaw. I think Jeff Shaw 65, and then all you have to do is run a search on Google for comedian Jeff Shaw, and all my stuff comes up. My website is jeffthefunded.com, and so all my stuff is cross promoted. Like all of my videos, I try to put on YouTube, and I release different versions on the different platforms. And I have one called The Worry Appointment, which were like these Andy Rooney type essays about things that bothered me or worried me. And You're Doing It Wrong is just a series that I did. My friend of mine, Al Romero, is a comedian, he gave me an idea, so I wanted a feature that people, could look forward to. I basically just me ranting about what I think people are doing wrong. So one of them was, hey, Stephen King, you're doing it wrong. Stop writing your novels faster than I can read them. I started it in 1982. I just finished it last year. Wow, Jeff, you're a real slow reader. No, Erlock. And I'm tired of Stephen King being so prolific. He puts out 3 to 4 1,000-page novels every year, and I spent 6 hours today writing new material. I came up with 4 lousy lines. You want to hear them? All fun and no play make Jeff a dull boy. Joke number 2, all fun and no play make Jeff a dull boy. All work and no play make Jeff a dull boy. And joke number 4, here's Jeffy. So that's like the nature of those, and you can check them out on YouTube.
Yeah,
put them out every week.
Yeah, I really enjoyed those, and you're doing a good job with it. Well, I know you got to go get your car, but thank you so much for doing this. I'm a fan, and obviously you are just knocking out of the park as far as stand-up comedy is going.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.